Greetings, fellow Idahoans. This is the Idaho 97 podcast. I'm Nathaniel Huffman. I'm here with my co-conspirators, Emily Walton, Mike Setz, and Alicia Abbott. And we are recording a little late at the end of the weekend. We usually record on Fridays, but we all need a little bit of rest as the legislature finally sine-died. And I think they actually did this time, right? They're not going to come back again in 2022.
Right. No werewolf of the legislature coming back to spook us.
All right. Well, Mike, it actually ended up all right. We were worried that they gave themselves some time to counter the governor's vetoes, but there were two pretty good vetoes that stuck. Tell us about them.
Yeah, so Governor Little, he vetoed two bills, one that we asked a lot of you, our followers, to weigh in on, and we've been asking for 2 weeks to weigh in on this, and that is the court packing bill that was going to change the commission of the courts and put most of the power with the governor and the Senate, and the governor, he vetoed that bill. They attempted to override it, and they failed. The override was a failure, and that's good. That gives us more time to educate folks and to talk about it. I would expect it to come back, given the parties that were behind it, but now we're ready for it, and we can do something about it. And the second one was this inaptly named. They're really good at coming up with these bad names. COVID restart bill, as if you can just push a button and restart COVID, right? And the most pernicious piece of this bill, actually, there were a lot of pernicious pieces of this bill, but one was telling private employers they couldn't require vaccines. It was blatantly unconstitutional and goes against the freedom of the businesses and business owners to do what they want to do. And then there were also some other things that were focused on taking away local control, which is a theme of this legislature, to try to take local control away and centralize it. It makes it look a lot like kind of Stalinistic Russia, right? It's crazy. It's crazy. These people that scream out freedom are all about controlling other people's freedom. But that was vetoed, and that survived as well. And so that was good. That's good for our state. And it also shows, thematically, right? It shows that pushing back against extremism works. That the citizenry is paying attention. The governor knows the citizenry is paying attention, and it shows that it works. Last year, I'm not sure this would have happened, but this year it happened, and it was successful. So let's keep up the good work, Idaho 97.
Right on. Emily, you want to talk about how education fared? That's a big issue for Idaho 97 supporters.
I do. So it sounds like the Idaho legislature, at least some of them, are understanding and hearing the message that Idahoans really care about education strength in our state. They care about their K-12 schools being funded appropriately. I want to stress this bump that they've gotten in pay does not mean they're suddenly magically funded appropriately. I don't think at this point we meet the constitutional standard of, that fair system for all children getting education in Idaho, but we're headed in the right direction. So K-12 got an 11% bump, and that is very good. We still have a lot of catching up to do to ever get where we really need to be as a state, but it is good. We're headed in that direction. And then the other good thing that happened is the higher education budget wasn't punished this year. So you might recall last year, there's a budget that came out and then it got cut by, I think, $1.5 million because of, some quote unquote bad things that the higher education had done that they had not done. And so we're pretty happy to see that. It happened kind of quietly, but very happy to see that those things moved through in the right way. And we will push very hard to see more of that happen.
And on that, I want to give two shout outs there. Shout out to Boise State President Marlene Trump. And the shout out to her is just for enduring. She is protecting her institution. She is protecting her faculty. She is protecting her staff, and she is protecting her students. And she's doing a phenomenal job, given that she is the one with a target on her back. The second president that needs to have a shout out is President Scott Green of the University of Idaho. He came out. He did not mince words. He said he's the one that brought this conflict entrepreneurs to Idaho, and he deserves a lot of credit for coming out strong there.
Yeah, these might seem like small victories, but they're important because they're huge deals for the extreme far right. And so the fact that education in this state is holding its own, education is consistently the most important topic for Idaho voters over many, many years. So this seems like a good trend. Well, the not so good trend, although, whenever the legislature makes an interim committee, that's something we know we can easily push back against and is maybe not going to do anything. There is an interim committee coming on libraries. Does anybody want to take a stab at?
Yeah. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay. Yeah, I'm having some problems with my internet connection, so I went ahead and shut my video down. But I want to talk about this library stuff. So there's an interim committee out there, and the interim committee is a result of a last-ditch effort to assault our libraries again and basically ban books. Now this effort was actually somewhat effective in two respects. The first respect is that they did cut $3.5 million from the Commission for the Libraries budget. It doesn't do anything to the actual libraries, right? It actually is just this commission. And what they ended up cutting was broadband internet service for rural Idahoans, and they ended up cutting telehealth services for rural Idahoans, right? And that's just nuts, right? Because this is our extremists, this is their constituents, right, that they hurt. And it's just nuts, just so that they could say they did something to libraries, right? But they didn't do anything to libraries. All they did was hurt their constituents. But the other area where this is being effective is what we call a chilling effect in law, in constitutional law. It's chilling free speech. Librarians, and we're already hearing from librarians that they're self-censoring, right? And they're already looking at books that they have to censor them. And this is not the way America works. And so we should really be appalled by this kind of behavior, that they failed to assault and take down education, and they went after librarians. What kind of bullies are we dealing with here?
That inspired me. I actually went to the Boise Public Library last week and checked out some books. I hadn't done that for a very long time. It was super fun. So go support your local library, Idahoans. Go check out a book, read something, and thank the librarians. Let's go kind of quickly. There's at least one lawsuit already against the bill that passed in 2022. And then if you want to just slide right into, the Lieutenant Governor's current host of problems.
Sure. So yeah, a lawsuit's been filed already against the abortion bounty hunter bill, basically, and so we'll see where that goes. It was expected. We knew it was going to happen. The governor even said it was going to happen, and he still signed the bill. So we're just going to have to watch that play out. The next thing is Lieutenant Governor McGeehan. The legislature did not fund her legal costs for losing a lawsuit to try to hide public information, to hide information on a survey and comments made about her ridiculous indoctrination witch hunt. And so this is pretty interesting, because I just read a news story that said she may have to forego her pay. Oh, too bad. I just feel so awful for her. She completely earned that. And so, but her budget, she can't meet her budget now. And, frankly, she deserves it. She's not playing like how we would expect a leader to behave. And speaking of transparency, she's now blocking everyone who disagrees with her, or almost everyone who disagrees with her, preemptively on social, and that is most likely unconstitutional, because she uses her social media channels for her official government duties, and so that's a violation of the First Amendment. But what do you expect from someone who doesn't believe in transparency and that kind of thing? Now, another thing to keep in mind, though, she may not be actually 100% in control of this, right? This may be the extremist campaign folks who are doing that, because she's a liability, and they know she's a liability, and they're really focused on Raul Labrador and the Attorney General position. And so we're going to do some work on that, and we will have more on that coming up in the next few weeks.
Awesome. Okay, well, that was the week in extremism in Idaho in a quick nutshell. This is our 5th podcast, and I feel like we have been really summing up for the folks what's going on each week. Our next segment here is how to take action. And Mike, do you want to kick this off with?
Yeah. So the Idaho 97, we really need your support right now. Idaho 97 it's funded by followers and people who want to counter extremism, and we need your support moving into this primary season. We expended a lot of resources during the legislature, and we need to build up again and move right in. Primaries are in 6 weeks, and we need our followers to step up and help us do what we need to do. We're going to focus a lot on voter registration, voter information, voter education, and getting voters out. The more voters we have show up, the better Idaho will be. And so we need you to help us do that.
Alicia, can we talk a little bit about this primary that's coming up in a couple weeks, month and a half?
Yeah, we've got about 6 weeks until the primary, folks. I received my absentee ballot in the mail. I was down in Boise for Sine Die. And so it's go time. We need to get our neighbors to the polls. We have phone banks for you to plug into. We are still contacting unaffiliated voters because we have not called them all yet. As Mike said, the more we vote, the better our outcomes are in our state. Idahoans, we poll against extremism every time. We do not agree with violence in the political process. And this myriad of attempts to shut down public meetings over the past few years has come to a head. So we really need everybody to get their mothers, brothers, husbands, wives, children to the polls this May 17th for the primary. Ways you can be helpful outside of phone banking and affiliated voters. Go support that candidate that you want to help, that you want to see win. Volunteers are hard to come by, and this is really difficult work sometimes, especially when you're doing persuasion. And candidates need your help. So offer to phone bank for a candidate if you can. And something else I want to talk about is we really need to pay attention to the fact that some of our local Republican Central Committees have been taken over by John Birch Society IFF types, and they are putting out their slates. And those slates have extremists on them. We've seen some news articles regarding how appropriate that is, that central committees are putting out slates, specifically in Bonneville County. But I know my county in Bonner County has put out a slate with extremists on it, as well as Kootenai County Republican Central Committee has put out slates with extremists on it. And when I say extremists, I'm talking about supremacists. I'm talking about people who want to continue punishing librarians. I'm talking about the people who demonize our teachers on a regular basis and try to defund our public schools. So make it very clear to your friends and family that this is a very important election, and to not just accept the traditional GOP advice, because we're facing some problems with those entities right now.
Can we just stick on this for one more second? Because I mean, you know, a closed Republican primary, like the whole point there is that Republicans get to choose among their candidates, right? And so when our local party is putting out a slate of preferred choices, again, they are limiting ability to choose their leaders.
I have there's an organization up in North Idaho called North Idaho Voter Services, and they said something so perfect the other night that I'm going to share it. They said Idahoans are independent and like to make their own choices. The purpose of a primary election is for the voters to choose their candidate. It is not for the party to choose for the voters. And it couldn't have been said better if I tried, because that is how Idahoans feel about the election process. They do not want people telling them how to vote. And I really hope folks take the time to research above and beyond these slates some of these Republican Central Committees are putting out. You know, in Bonner County, perfect example, Scott Herndon is running against Jim Woodward. He is the most extreme person ever run for the Idaho legislature, in my opinion. He's been the author of the abortion is murder laws for the past several years that Heather Scott has carried. And these are the type of people some of our taken over central committees are putting up.
So, Mike, we want to help people out with this. What's the plan? How are we going to?
Yeah. So, you know, the first thing is in the plan is it starts with you, listener, and it starts with you paying attention to what's going on. And first of all, we have a lot of known extremist candidates in this state. So pay attention to them, see what they're saying, see what they're doing, see who they are associating with, see who they are supporting. And that's going to be a pretty good guide to who you should not vote for. The second thing is pay attention to all of the candidates. Do not pay attention to the letter behind the name, right? But if you're obviously going in the primary and you know what party you're going to vote for, then you should pay attention to the letter. But pay attention to all the candidates. Look at what they say, right? See what their actual message is, right? And see what their commitment is. What are they saying they're going to do? And then what is their record if they already have a record out there? And does their record align with your values and with what they say they're going to do? If they say they're going to do something, like if Heather Scott, in this, I'm just throwing this out there, she's not opposed, right? But if Heather Scott says she's going to support education, well, you know she's not, right? Because look at her votes. They aren't there. And so if someone who tells you they're going to do something other than what they've actually done, don't vote for that person. That's important, right? It's very important. And finally, pay attention statewide. This is how the extremists really have taken over the state. Is they're working in these very small county level, and we need to be paying attention. So if you live in North Idaho, pay attention to North Idaho, your county there. But pay attention to what's going on in Boise, pay attention to what's going on in Eastern Idaho. Same thing for folks in Boise, Twin Falls, Pocatello. Pay attention, and you need to help out, right? You need to support these good folks in other parts of the state. We've been watching how much money in the last reporting period has been provided by a very small number of very wealthy individuals to these extremist PACs. It's enormous. It's absolutely enormous. And so how we counter that is we're not going to counter it money on money. We're going to counter it with voters, right? That's how we're going to do it. And you're the ones who are going to do that. So we really need to pay attention to this stuff. And I'll say one more thing when I say pay attention statewide. North Idaho Voter Services, that's a great organization to follow if you're on social media. They really understand the role of government and the role of elected officials. And just like Alicia gave you that statement applies across the state, even though they may be more focused on candidates more locally.
Awesome. Okay, we're moving quickly. We want to keep this podcast really tight so that you can get all the information you need in a efficient manner. So let's move right to Act 3 of our weekly podcast, My Far Right Nut. And who's going to introduce our nut this week?
Hit it! Yeah. Yo, let's get stupid, y'all. Yo, homeboy, you seen him? Seafool, my nuts, man. Who you think? Oh,
This week's Far Right Nut is none other than Representative Priscilla Giddings, who is running to be our next lieutenant governor. Priscilla Giddings is known for very atrocious behavior in the legislature, namely for doxing sexual assault victim. Last year, we held her accountable at Idaho 97 for doing so. She recently also doxed some law enforcement professionals, CPS professionals, and healthcare professionals in regards to the medical kidnapping case that the Health Freedom Idaho goons tried to accomplish in the last few weeks. And
let me just interrupt you real quick. Alicia did some giant air quotes around medical kidnapping. That's not an actual thing.
correct. And there was an incident where a child needed to be seen by a doctor, and those parents chose not to take their child to the doctor. And the grandfather of that child happens to be Diego Rodriguez, a good friend of Priscilla Giddings. And they are on regular tour together, spreading disinformation across our state with organizations like John Birch Society, Idaho Freedom Foundation, Health Freedom Idaho. And I understand, I do have word, I have not confirmed, but I am pretty confident this is the case, that she organized in a church in Bonners Ferry this last week that is a Holocaust denial church. So this is the type of individual that Priscilla Giddings is, and something she does that just makes me so angry. She is a military veteran, and she uses that negatively.
She's actually in the service right now.
Oh, she's still in the service. Mike, why don't you talk about that a little bit? You're a veteran.
Yeah, I mean, so she's in the, I believe that she's in the reserves, the Air Force Reserves right now. And she's actually, last I heard, she's actually the Air Force Academy's recruiting officer for the whole state of Idaho, which is shocking given her behavior. But what's more shocking is the commandant of the Air Force Academy came to her promotion here, which Priscilla Giddings turned into a campaign event, which is illegal. But no one told her. They tried to control the pictures, so you couldn't see the people holding Priscilla Giddings for governor signs up and wearing her t-shirts. But that's what happened. And that actually a lieutenant colonel based out of, I don't know if he's out of the Idaho National Guard or a colonel, sorry, Idaho National Guard actually promoted her. And so that's just really shocking conduct. But what Priscilla does is, you know, she runs around. If you see pictures of her, she's always carrying this 30 millimeter shell, which is she's an A-10 pilot. And that's the cannon that the A-10s have to bust tanks up with and softer targets. And she carries it around is sort of this militant way of saying, yeah, look at me, I'm in the military and vote for me. So one thing that's critical to understand is the military and the government need to be separate. right? All right. This is key to our freedoms. This is key to how America works. And so when people are doing this, or kind of trying to cross over and use their service is a method and a means of getting your vote, you should be very cautious, right? You should be extremely cautious. I served for 10 years. I was very proud of my service, but I don't go throwing it out there, right? Is why you should listen to me, right? Now, I will put up my pictures whenever these freedom folks try to say that I'm not a freedom-loving person, or they try to say that I'm not that I'm like, they like to call me a communist, right? And so I'll show them, some of my rough and tumble pictures of service days, just to say, yeah, right, shut up. But that is not actually a qualifier for me telling people how to vote, right? That is just something that I did. That's how I served my country. And you should be very cautious when someone's running around hiding behind military props trying to tell you that you should listen to them, right? Because that just really shows their insecurity and their inability to actually bring anything of value to you in the polity, because our politics are not related to the military.
We could probably check in again with the Air Force. I mean, we haven't really followed recently with the Air Force on the various complaints that have been filed against Giddings.
Yeah.
Priscilla Giddings has a horrible voting record as a representative. She is one of those representatives who tried to attack librarians this session. She signed on to that horrible abortion bill we have now. Every bad bill that you did not like as an Idaho 97 percenter, Priscilla supported. So that's all the indication we need to know what kind of leader she's going to be as a lieutenant governor. And so spread the word. Priscilla Giddings is not our friend.
Emily, would you like the last word on Giddings?
Yeah, on that note, as some of you might know, I have very conservative family members in my family, some of them who live in Representative Giddings' district up there. And one time I offhand mentioned to one of my family members how terrible Priscilla Giddings is and the things that she was doing. And this family member said, really, I thought she was great. And I think what this shows us is, first of all, there really is a media and news desert up in North Idaho in our state. They do not have as much access to the different news sources that we have down here. And so that's a real problem. And we're not that we're going to become a news source, but we are trying to get the word out about how things really go on down here in Boise when people come to legislature and the things that they're really doing. And I think it also highlights that one of the very best, most effective ways that we can influence what people think about and what people know about things that are happening in their state is personal conversations. And so, even though I know this family member is very conservative, I felt so confident in telling them about how bad Priscilla Giddings is because I can demonstrate it so easily that I did that. And I just want to encourage each of you, if you have those relationships, to have those conversations, because people really do need to know what's going on down here and how the facade that someone like Priscilla Giddings puts on and the actions that she does do not match up with the votes that she takes in the legislature and the stuff that she does down here that we see up close.
Excellent. All right. This is Politics is Personal. This has been another fascinating episode of the Idaho 97 podcast. I'm Nathaniel Hoffman. I'm here with Emily, Alicia, and Mike, and we will see you all next week. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Bye, everyone.